When my sister texted me to join her at the family dinner, I thought maybe she finally forgave me for being adopted. For a moment, that single message made my chest tighten. Dinner at Le Chateau tonight, be on time. Sophia, no emojis, no warmth, just instructions, like always. I stared at the screen, half smiling, half terrified. Maybe this was her peace offering, maybe, after all these years, I'd finally sit beside her as a sister, not as the family's charity project. I'm Ava Reynolds, adopted daughter of the Reynolds family. People call them the elegant Reynoldses, owners of boutique hotels, the kind of people who sip sparkling water even when they're angry. When they lost their first daughter in an accident years ago, they adopted me. I was 6, small, quiet, and desperate to please. But from the first day, I could feel it. I wasn't a replacement, just a reminder. Mom would smile in public and say, "Ava's such a blessing." But at home, her eyes slid past me like I was furniture. Dad buried himself in work. And Sophia, their biological miracle child born 2 years later, was everything they ever wanted back. Golden hair, flawless grades, and a confidence that filled every room. I was the quiet contrast. The adopted girl who never quite matched the family portrait. Growing up, I learned the unspoken rule: blend in, don't demand. At dinners, Sophia told stories. I served dessert. At birthdays, she got diamonds. I got discounts. Every kindness had conditions. Every compliment had an expiration date. Still, I believed family meant forever, even if forever sometimes forgot your name. So when that dinner invitation arrived, it felt like hope. Le Chateau wasn't just any restaurant. It was their place. Crystal chandeliers, live piano, the kind of menu that doesn't list prices because if you have to ask, you don't belong there. I spent the afternoon pacing around my apartment. Should I go? Would I ruin their perfect family picture again? In the mirror, I adjusted my dress. Soft blue, nothing too bold. I clipped my hair the way Mom liked and whispered, "Tonight, you'll belong." Then I picked up a small bouquet of lilies, her favorite, and drove into the night. The city lights blurred past as I replayed memories, Sophia's laughter echoing down hallways that once felt like home. I remembered the first time she called me sister. I was 13. She was 11 and she needed help with homework. It lasted one afternoon. Since then, every word between us had sharp edges. But maybe, just maybe, she had changed. Maybe this dinner was an olive branch. The restaurant shimmered with candlelight. Through the glass windows, I saw them already seated. Mom in her pearl necklace, Dad adjusting his cufflinks, Sophia glowing under soft light. I exhaled, pushed open the door, and walked in. The maitre d' smiled politely. "Reservation for the Reynolds party?" I nodded, clutching the lilies. He guided me toward the long table in the center, laughter spilling from it like champagne. But halfway there, Sophia turned. Her smile froze. "Ava," she said, her voice too sweet. "You made it." Her eyes flicked over my bouquet. "Cute flowers." Mom gave a polite nod. Dad barely looked up from his phone. The waiter pulled out a chair. But before I could sit, Sophia interrupted. "Oh, actually, could you sit over there?" She pointed toward a smaller table near the corner. "Why?" I asked, forcing a laugh. Sophia's tone turned crisp. "It's just easier for the seating plan. Families sitting together here." The room went quiet for half a second. Then someone chuckled. Even the waiter hesitated, glancing at me for permission. I nodded quickly. "It's fine." My throat burned as I crossed to the small table. Alone, with my flowers as company. From across the room, I watched them toast champagne, forks clinking, laughter floating. Every now and then, Mom waved as if to include me, but her eyes never truly met mine. I ordered a small bowl of soup, the cheapest thing on the menu, and tried to smile. The waiter whispered softly, "Would you like the same wine?" I shook my head. Just water. Inside I was crumbling, but on the outside I kept my posture perfect. If I'd learned anything from this family, it was how to pretend. As the piano played, I drifted back to a different dinner years ago. I was 16. Sophia had made fun of my curly hair, calling it orphan hair. Mom laughed, said she was just being silly. That night, I cut my hair short, hoping it'd help me fit in. It never did. Back in the present, I touched the ends of my now-grown hair and smiled bitterly. Some things grow back stronger. The waiter refilled my glass and whispered, "Would you like me to bring your check now, or wait until their table closes?" His tone made me pause. "Wait," I said slowly, confusion creeping in. "Why would I have a separate check?" He smiled apologetically. They requested it that way when they arrived. My stomach twisted. That's when I realized this dinner wasn't a reunion. It was a performance, and I was the punchline. I didn't know this dinner was planned to humiliate me. The soft notes of a grand piano floated through the air as I stepped into Le Chateau, the kind of place where the napkins probably had their own bank accounts. Golden chandeliers glimmered overhead. The air smelled of roses and roasted truffles, and every guest looked like they belonged on a magazine cover. I didn't, but I tried to pretend I did. My palms were sweating around the bouquet of lilies I'd brought. The waiter's eyes flicked down at my dress, simple, affordable, then back to my face with a polite, uncertain smile. "Reservation under Reynolds," I murmured. He nodded, checking the list. "Ah, yes, they're already seated." His voice softened, almost pitying, as he gestured toward the main dining area. There they were, my family. Sophia sparkled in a silk gown that looked hand-stitched by angels. Mom's diamond necklace caught the candlelight like it was born there. Dad sat tall in his custom-tailored suit, swirling wine like it was a second language. And me. I stood at the entrance, holding flowers, trying to figure out where I fit in that picture. Sophia noticed me first. Her eyes slid up and down, from my modest shoes to my nervous smile. Then she smirked. "Oh, you came." Her tone was sugar-coated poison. Mom turned her head, feigning surprise. "Oh, Ava, darling, you made it. How lovely." Dad gave a quick nod, his version of affection. The waiter moved to pull out a chair for me, but Sophia's voice sliced through the moment. Actually, that table's for family. You can sit over there." Her perfectly manicured finger pointed toward a smaller table near the restroom. The piano music seemed to stop for a second. Every head turned. People pretending not to watch but failing miserably. The kind of silence that makes your heartbeat sound too loud. The waiter froze, glancing between us like he'd just walked into a family landmine. "Sophie," Mom started with a soft laugh. "Don't be so dramatic. She's just teasing." But Sophia leaned back in her chair, smirking. "I'm serious, Mom. That's the family table. She's adopted. It's not like she needs to sit with us." Dad chuckled. Not because it was funny, but because laughing was easier than confronting her cruelty. The waiter's polite smile trembled. My throat tightened. I could feel the eyes of strangers burning holes into my skin. I wanted to disappear. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing a smile that felt made of glass. "It's fine," I said quietly. "I'll just sit there." My voice didn't even sound like mine. As I walked toward the corner table, my heels clicked against the marble floor, each step echoing louder than the piano. No one said a word. Not Mom, not Dad, not Sophia. I sat down at a small table beside the restroom door. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and expensive perfume, a cruel mix of humiliation and luxury. The waiter approached me softly. "Would you like to order something, miss?" "Just water," I whispered. "Please." He nodded, pity flickering in his eyes before he walked away. From where I sat, I could see everything. Their laughter, their clinking glasses, Sophia showing something funny on her phone while Mom covered her mouth, giggling. It was like watching a movie, one I wasn't cast in anymore. I traced the edge of the tablecloth with my fingers, pretending I didn't care. But every sound from their table stabbed like a reminder. I was part of their story, but never their scene. The waiter brought my water. "Would you like to start with soup, ma'am?" I smiled faintly. "No, thank you." He hesitated, then placed a bread basket gently in front of me, whispering, "On the house." It was the smallest act of kindness, and it nearly broke me. Halfway through the dinner, Mom finally turned around. "Ava, sweetheart, don't look so sad. You know how Sophia is, and she jokes too much." Jokes. That word twisted inside me like a knife. Sophia raised her glass. "Cheers to family." Everyone laughed, except me. I took a sip of water and whispered to myself, "Yeah. Cheers to that." As I sat there, I remembered another family dinner. Years ago, at the same restaurant. I was 15, and Sophia had mocked me for wearing an off-brand dress. Dad had said, "Let her be. She tries." Tries. That's what I was to them, a constant attempt at belonging. The memory faded, but the sting remained. Tonight wasn't just another humiliation. It was confirmation. I would never be one of them. When dessert arrived at their table, I stood up quietly. The piano played its final note, soft, melancholic, like it knew my story. Sophia looked over, smirking again. "Leaving already?" "Didn't even eat?" I forced a polite smile. "I'm full." "Of what?" she said, laughing. Mom hushed her. "Sophia, enough." But the damage was done. I walked past their table, holding the bouquet of lilies that now felt ridiculous. Mom's voice trailed after me. "Ava, take some dessert home." I didn't look back. The waiter at the door opened it gently for me. His eyes said what no one else dared to. "I'm sorry." Outside, the cool night air hit my face, and only then did I realize I'd been holding my breath the whole time. As I stood by my car, the restaurant lights glittering behind me, I whispered. That night I didn't eat dinner. I swallowed my pride instead. And right then I promised myself something. They'd never get the chance to humiliate me again. Not like this. Not ever. The restaurant lights had dimmed by the time I returned from the restroom, ready to leave quietly before anyone noticed. I'd stayed long enough to be humiliated. That felt like payment enough. But Sophia wasn't done yet. As I reached for my coat, she called out sweetly, "Ava, wait!" Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as she strutted toward me, holding something between two manicured fingers. A long, white receipt. "Since you joined us," she said, stretching the word with fake warmth. "Here's your share of the dinner bill. $3,270. Family rate." Her laughter rippled through the air like shattered glass. For a second I thought I'd misheard her. "What?" I whispered. But I didn't even eat. She leaned in, her perfume thick and expensive, her smile perfectly cruel. "That's the cost of pretending you belong here." Her words hit harder than any slap could. I glanced at the table. Mom avoided eye contact, stirring her drink as if it suddenly fascinated her. Dad scrolled through his phone. No one said a thing. The waiter stood awkwardly in the distance, pretending not to hear, but his eyes, full of quiet pity, told me he had. Sophia's friends at the next table had their phones out, giggling, whispering. One of them muttered, "Oh my God, did she really just make her pay?" And that's when the flashlights hit my face. They were taking pictures. My cheeks burned. My throat tightened. Every sound in the restaurant grew distant, replaced by a high-pitched ringing in my ears. I could feel tears pressing behind my eyes, begging to fall. But I didn't let them. Not here. Not in front of her. I took the folded bill from Sophia's hand and said quietly, "Thank you for reminding me who I am to you." Her smirk faltered for just a second, then returned, sharper. "Good. Just don't forget it next time." I turned around before she could see my face crumble. The waiter, the same kind-eyed man who'd given me free bread earlier, rushed forward, whispering, "You don't have to pay that, miss." "I saw everything," I smiled weakly. "It's fine. I'm used to it." And then I walked out, past the golden chandeliers, past the stairs, past the laughter. Inside my car, the silence was deafening. The smell of lilies, still lying on the passenger seat, filled the air. I dropped the receipt beside them. The number stared back at me like a cruel joke. 3,270,000. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel and let the tears fall. I cried for every time I tried to earn their love. For every Christmas I spent alone while they posted family pictures online. For every birthday text that never came. And mostly, for still hoping they'd change. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked like a stranger. Mascara streaks, trembling lips, eyes swollen from holding back years of disappointment. "Why do I keep letting them do this to me?" I whispered. The answer came quietly, because part of me still believed being adopted meant owing them something, but not anymore. I opened my purse, searching for tissues, and found my wallet instead. Inside a few receipts, and 3 crumpled dollar bills. That's all I had until next payday. $3. I laughed bitterly through my tears. $3,000 for dinner. $3 for dignity. And that's when it hit me. The perfect, poetic revenge. I picked up my phone and opened my banking app. The same hands that had been shaking moments ago were now perfectly still. "You wanted payment, Sophia," I whispered. "You'll get it. Exactly what you think I'm worth." The glow of the phone screen reflected in my wet eyes as I started typing her name in the transfer field. But I didn't press send. Not yet, because revenge, real revenge, isn't rushed. It's served cold, and mine was going to be ice cold. As I drove home, the city lights blurred into streaks of gold and silver. The bouquet of lilies slid across the seat, petals falling like tiny pieces of my old hope. I thought about how long I'd chased, their approval, years of trying, to be the good daughter, the grateful one, the quiet one. I had spent my whole life apologizing for existing in their world. But tonight, something changed. Maybe humiliation is what it takes to finally stop chasing love that hurts. When I reached home, I placed the crumpled receipt on the kitchen counter and stared at the number one last time. Then I whispered to myself, that's when I decided to send her exactly what she thought I was worth. And with that, a strange calm washed over me. Not anger, not pain, but something stronger. Peace. And the quiet promise of revenge. The next morning, the sunlight felt too bright, like it didn't belong to the same world I'd cried in the night before. I sat on my couch, scrolling through my phone, the $270 receipt still lying on the table beside me. The number mocked me every time I looked at it. And then, I opened my banking app. The cursor blinked beside Sophia's name. Waiting. My hands didn't shake this time. Amount, 3 euro. Note, payment made. Next time, charge extra for love. I took a deep breath and pressed send. There it was. Confirmation successful. A $3 transfer. Small but sharp as a blade. I screenshotted it and sent it to the family group chat. For a moment, no one replied. Then the chat exploded. Mom. Ava, are you serious? This isn't how adults behave, Sophia. You'll regret this, little orphan. Grow up. Dad, such disrespect. You embarrass this family. Dozens of laughing emojis flooded the screen. Cousins, relatives, people I barely even spoke to. The group chat became a circus, but I didn't reply. Not this time. I just watched the chaos unfold, their words bouncing off me like pebbles against a wall. Then quietly I blocked them all. Every number. Every contact. Every thread that tied me to their cruelty. For the first time in years, my phone was silent. No fake concern. No guilt messages. No manipulation disguised as family. Just quiet. And in that silence, I realized something. Peace doesn't always arrive with forgiveness. Sometimes it arrives after you stop answering. I made tea, wrapped myself in a blanket, and sat on the floor beside a dusty old box I hadn't opened in years. It was the one thing I'd kept from my childhood, labeled Adoption Day. Inside were faded photos, me in a too-big dress, holding a teddy bear, smiling nervously at the camera. Mom's smile looked forced even back then. Dad was checking his watch. Sophia, just a child, stood behind me, glaring, but something else caught my attention. A small white envelope tucked between the last two photos. The paper was yellowed and soft at the edges, like it had been hidden a long time. On the front, written in delicate handwriting, "For Ava, from your first mother." My breath caught. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside, a short letter written in blue ink, faded but still readable. My dearest Ava, if you are reading this, it means you are safe, and my decision was not in vain. I wanted to give you a better life, one I couldn't afford back then. But know this. I never left you empty-handed. There's a trust fund in your name, kept under legal guardianship until you turn 25. You were never unwanted, my love. You were protected. The letter ended with a name I could barely read through the tears. Evelyn Hart. A trust fund? That couldn't be real, could it? No one had ever told me. No one had ever even mentioned Evelyn again after my adoption. I checked the date. The letter was written the same week I was adopted. And then, one line I'd almost missed, written in smaller handwriting at the bottom. Your sister knows where it is. I froze. Sophia. The same sister who humiliated me, who laughed at my pain, who made me pay for belonging. She knew. All those years, while I struggled to pay rent, skipped meals to buy gifts for their birthdays, worked 2 jobs just to be good enough. She knew she'd been sitting on something that could have changed my life. Stared at the letter until the ink blurred behind my tears. Heart didn't feel broken anymore. It felt still. Cold. Focused. The kind of stillness that comes right before a storm. You'll regret this, Sophia had said. She was right. Just not in the way she thought, because now I wasn't just the forgotten adopted girl. I was the rightful heir to something she'd tried to bury. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel powerless. I felt ready. I folded the letter carefully and placed it beside my laptop. The bank app still glowed faintly on my phone screen. The $3 transaction confirmed. You started this with money, Sophia, I whispered. Let's see how it feels when money ends it. The letter sat on my lap for hours, the paper wrinkled, my tears drying in uneven stains. A trust fund. $500,000 left for me. hidden from me. All these years, while I worked double shifts and skipped meals, they were dining in luxury, on money that wasn't theirs. My fingers shook as I typed trust fund records into Google. But I knew this wasn't something I could uncover alone. By noon, I found myself standing in front of a small legal aid office, a plain building sandwiched between a laundromat and a pawn shop. It didn't look like justice lived here, but maybe truth did. The receptionist looked up. "Do you have an appointment?" I held up the letter. "No, but I think my life was stolen." Minutes later, I sat across from Mr. Collins, a middle-aged lawyer with kind eyes and coffee stains on his tie. He read the letter silently, brows furrowing deeper with every line. Then he looked up. "Miss Ava, this is a legal declaration. It mentions a trust established in 2003 under your name. Do you have any adoption records?" I handed him a faded folder I'd carried for years, my just-in-case papers. He flipped through, stopped, then his expression changed. "This says your guardians were legal trustees. Margaret and Thomas Reynolds." My heart dropped. "My adoptive parents." Mr. Collins kept reading, slower now. "According to this, the trust was worth approximately $500,000, locked until you turned 25. But it also says funds were accessed early, by someone named..." He paused, then met my eyes. "Sophia Reynolds." It felt like the room spun. I couldn't speak. He continued carefully. "It appears a withdrawal was made under the pretext of educational expenses 5 years ago. Then, the account was closed." My hands went numb. Sophia's degree, her luxury trips, her car, it was all mine. They hadn't just taken money. They'd stolen my chance at freedom and used it to build their perfect lives. I whispered, "So they forged my rights?" Mr. Collins nodded. "Technically, yes. That's fraud. A very serious one." He leaned forward. "If this goes public, it'll destroy their reputation, especially if your parents were involved." I stared at the floor. Destroy their reputation. For years they'd destroyed me. My confidence, my identity, my sense of belonging, and they never even looked back. The tears came quietly this time. Not loud or messy, just heavy. "They didn't just take my money," I said, my voice trembling. "They took my identity, all those years of hearing. You're lucky we took you in. You should be grateful. You'll never be a real Reynolds." Now I understood why. They'd been protecting a secret, not me. Mr. Collins handed me a tissue. "There are ways to reopen this case, Ava. You have rights." But I wasn't listening anymore. My mind was racing through every memory that suddenly made sense. The whispers when I entered a room, the guarded looks between my parents, Sophia's smug smile whenever she mentioned expensive gifts. Every puzzle piece had just clicked into place. I thought revenge was about sending $3, but now I realized that was nothing. They built their empire on a stolen foundation, and I was about to take the ground from under them. I stood up, my voice steadier. "What happens if I file a claim?" Mr. Collins adjusted his glasses. "Well, there'll be an investigation. If fraud is proven, the assets can be recovered, or at least frozen. But it will be public. Your family's name will be in every document." He hesitated. "Are you ready for that?" I took a deep breath. The image of Sophia laughing at the restaurant flashed in my mind, her words echoing. "That's the cost of pretending you belong here." I smiled faintly. "No, Mr. Collins, that's the cost of underestimating me." As I walked out of the office, the city lights glimmered against the glass doors. I looked at my reflection, tired but no longer weak. The same people who once told me I was lucky to have them were about to learn what it felt like to lose everything. "They buried a secret," I whispered, "but they forgot I was still alive to dig it up." The world didn't explode when I learned the truth. It just went quiet. No yelling, no drama. Just the kind of silence that comes right before a storm. It started 2 days later. A friend texted me a screenshot, a post from Sophia's account. Some people can't handle rejection, so they create stories. And mental health is real, guys. The comment section was full of sympathy. People calling her so strong, others saying, "Ignore the jealous ones." And then one line cut through me like a knife. "She's talking about her adopted sister again." My hands trembled, but I didn't reply. She wanted a reaction. She wanted me to scream so she could call me crazy. Not this time. Instead, I began collecting evidence. Bank transfers under her name. The trust withdrawal record. Screenshots of her luxury handbags and business class vacations. Voice notes from family chats where she laughed about how easy it was to fool Ava. I stored everything in a single folder, labeled Truth. Every night, after my shift at the diner, I sat on my laptop cross-referencing documents. I learned legal terms like forgery, trustee fraud, embezzlement. Each new word was another bullet in my invisible gun. Meanwhile, Sophia was thriving. Her Instagram glittered with perfection. New jewelry, perfect selfies, charity galas. She even posted "family is everything. Blood doesn't lie." Thousands of likes, and I just watched, screenshot after screenshot. Because if she wanted the world to see her perfect image, I'd make sure they'd also see what it was built on. Ava sitting at her desk, eyes tired but focused. Legal papers scattered, laptop screen glowing in the dark. She sips instant coffee, highlighting sections of documents. Her at the diner, serving customers, quiet, polite, invisible. Her phone buzzing with Sophia's posts, each one a reminder of the stolen life. Then, she looks in the mirror. No tears this time. Only resolve. Each click, each page turned, each deep breath, there wasn't weakness. It was preparation. Days passed. Then weeks. Sophia's rumors spread faster. People stopped calling me. Old friends crossed the street when they saw me. And still, I stayed silent, because the truth doesn't need noise. It only needs time. One night, I stared at my nearly empty bank account. The same $3 left from that dinner bill. It didn't sting anymore, because I knew what was coming. At 2 a.m., I opened my social media account for the first time in months. No filters, no fancy captions, just a blank space waiting to speak. I uploaded one photo, a close-up of the trust letter, half lit by the lamp on my desk. Caption: Sometimes silence is a weapon. No tags. No names, no explanations, just that. Then I logged off. By morning, there were hundreds of comments. Wait, what's this about? Is this real? Who's she talking about? Why does this sound like Sophia Reynolds? The internet had smelled blood. People began comparing old posts, pulling up Sophia's photos, matching timelines. Within hours, threads appeared. Reynolds family trust mystery. Did Sophia steal from her adopted sister? I didn't have to say a single word. They were saying it for me. Later that night, Sophia posted a story, her face pale behind heavy makeup. I'm not addressing lies. People will believe what they want, but the cracks had already appeared. Comments turned from adoration to suspicion. Old business partners unfollowed her. Her brand collaborations quietly disappeared. For years, she'd built her world on fake smiles and stolen money. And now, every photo, every caption, every luxury handbag was evidence. As I scrolled through the chaos, I didn't smile or cheer. I just felt free. Because for the first time, I wasn't the invisible one anymore. I was the truth. and the truth had finally found its voice. That night, I received a message request. No name, just a number I didn't recognize. Meet me tomorrow. I have information about your trust fund. It's not just Sophia. The message vanished a few seconds later. I stared at the screen. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. Let them crack. I'll make sure the whole world sees what's inside. It's funny how life circles back to the places that broke you. A year ago, I stood in this same restaurant, shaking, humiliated, trying to disappear. Tonight, I walked through the same doors wearing calm like armor. For weeks, I planned everything in silence. A charity dinner invitation went out under the name of the Hope Foundation, a real organization I'd partnered with for my bakery's community outreach. Venue, Le Chateau. Dress code, black tie. Purpose, celebrating families that give back. Sophia and my parents RSVP'd instantly. Of course they did. Nothing drew them faster than cameras and rich people. They didn't know the event's organizer or the agenda. The chandeliers glowed. Cameras flashed. Reporters mingled, holding wine glasses and microphones. I stood near the back entrance, watching as my parents entered. Mom in diamonds, Dad with his signature smug grin. Then Sophia walked in. A glittering gown, fake smile. The perfect mask. She looked around, confused. No sponsor in sight. A host guided them to a large table near the front. The same table she'd once pointed to and said, "That's for family." I took a deep breath and stepped into the light. The same waiter from that night recognized me. He paused, smiled softly, and whispered, "Welcome back, ma'am." When I walked toward the microphone, a hush fell over the crowd. Sophia's smile froze. Mom's hand tightened around her glass. I tapped the mic. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this special night. A night to honor honesty, love, and family." My voice didn't shake. It rang. A year ago, I stood right here, not as a guest, but as a joke. I was told to find another table, because I was adopted. Because I wasn't blood, the audience murmured. Cameras turned toward Sophia. But what my dear sister didn't realize is that sometimes the people you call outsiders are the only ones with a conscience. Behind me, the giant screen flickered to life. First image, the trust fund letter, my biological mother's handwriting. Second, bank documents with Sophia's name. Then, a series of text messages, her messages. She'll never find out. Mom. Just say the trust was spent on her school. She's too soft to ask questions. Gasps spread through the room like wildfire. Sophia shot up from her chair. This is fake. She's lying. But then, the voice note played. Her voice clear and cold. I used her name. So what? She's not even real family. Cameras turned. Journalists raised their recorders. The waiter stepped back, wide-eyed, and I stood there, calm, steady, unshaken. "This table," I said softly, "is for family. Real family. The kind that doesn't steal from their own." Mom tried to stand but stumbled. Dad looked at her, then at Sophia, his face draining of color. The crowd whispered, a swirl of shock, pity, and disbelief. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand, Ava. They made me do it." Her voice cracked. Reporters leaned in. "Who made you?" I asked quietly. She looked at our parents, silent, stone-faced. And that silence said everything. "Cut the cameras," my father barked. But it was too late. The footage was already streaming live on the charity's page. Sophia's perfect world shattered in seconds. Sponsors withdrew. Her PR agency quit. Mom's friends stopped calling. Dad's successful family man reputation? Gone, but I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just walked back to that same lonely corner table near the restroom, the one they'd once sent me to. This time, it was empty, peaceful. Sophia approached, mascara running, voice trembling. "Why did you do this? You've ruined us." I looked up at her, calm, not cruel. "No, Sophia." "You did. I just turned on the lights." She stared at me, broken. Then she whispered, "I wish I was adopted too." And for the first time, I almost felt sorry for her. As I walked out of the restaurant, reporters shouted my name, asking for comments. I just smiled and said, "No comments. Let the truth speak." I got into my car, started the engine, and looked back once. The restaurant lights reflected in the mirror like tiny fires. And I realized revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about reclaiming yourself. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. That was brave. "But are you ready for what comes next? Your family isn't done yet." I stared at the message, and for the first time I smiled. Neither am I. The next morning, Ava wakes up to hundreds of notifications. Her phone screen lights up like fireworks. Messages, tags, emails. Hashtag $3 sister trends across platforms. People everywhere are talking about her. Memes, TikToks, reaction videos, even podcasts dissecting the $3 revenge. Ava Carter, the girl who exposed her toxic family with grace. The most satisfying revenge of the year. She scrolls, overwhelmed. Comments flood in. "You didn't lose a family. You lost your chains." This hit harder than any drama series. Ava doesn't smile. Not yet. The spotlight feels strange. For years she was invisible. Now the world can't stop looking. Sophia's life implodes. Her luxury brand partnership cancels overnight. Clips of her crying at the dinner circulate everywhere. The internet is ruthless. Her company issues a statement. "We do not condone unethical or fraudulent behavior." Meanwhile, Ava's bakery sales triple in a week. Orders flood in from strangers calling her the Three Queen. Local news stations request interviews. Her parents? Silent. Their once perfect family image disintegrates in public threads and exposé videos. But Ava doesn't gloat. She watches in quiet disbelief as karma unfolds in 4K resolution. At night, she sits by her window sipping tea. Lily, her rescue cat, curls beside her. She whispers to herself, "It wasn't revenge I wanted. It was peace." Ava replays her sister's voice in her mind. "You'll regret this." But she doesn't. For the first time in her life, she feels free. She thinks of her biological mother's letter, the one that started it all. "Always know your worth, even if others forget it." Ava smiles faintly. The world may know her as a symbol of revenge, but inside, it feels like healing. Just as she starts to breathe again, her phone buzzes. It's her lawyer. "Ava, are you sitting down?" "What happened?" The court just froze Sophia's accounts, all of them. The fraud investigation's moving fast. Ava closes her eyes, letting the news sink in. The same sister who handed her a $3,370 bill just lost every dollar she ever stole. The lawyer adds, "And there's more. A letter arrived for you, from someone who claims to know your real family." Ava stares at the phone, stunned. Sometimes, the truth you think ended your story is only the beginning of another. Camera pans across the courtroom. Quiet, tense. Papers shuffle, whispers echo. Ava sits at the front row, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Across from her, her adoptive parents and sister, looking drained and defeated. For years they made me feel small, but today The truth finally gets a voice. The judge enters. Everyone rises. Ava's lawyer begins the case, calm, confident. He lays out the documents, adoption records, bank transfers, and the stolen trust fund trail. Screens behind him display the same evidence the audience saw in the viral exposure dinner. Gasps ripple through the courtroom. Sophia stands to defend herself, tears smudging her mascara. It wasn't my idea. Mom said it was for the family's future. Her parents exchanged nervous glances, for the first time, turning on each other. Margaret, the mother, blurts out, "You were supposed to give it back, Sophia. We only borrowed it." The judge interrupts sharply. "Borrowing without consent and falsifying signatures? That's fraud." The courtroom falls silent. Ava looks at them, not with hate, but quiet exhaustion. Voiceover. "All I ever wanted was love." But they measured everything in money. After hours of testimony, the judge delivers the verdict. The court orders full repayment of the trust fund to Miss Ava Carter, along with a formal public apology for emotional and financial exploitation. The audience inside the courtroom begins clapping softly, a symbolic gesture of support. Not celebration, Sophia breaks down sobbing. Their father lowers his head ashamed. For the first time, the power balance flips. Ava stands tall, composed, glowing in quiet victory. As reporters swarm outside the courthouse, Ava exits slowly. Camera flashes burst like thunder, but her expression stays calm. "I didn't win a battle. I just stopped letting them fight me." She walks down the courthouse steps. No makeup, no designer clothes, just peace. In her hand, an envelope the lawyer handed her before leaving. Her name is handwritten on the front. For Ava, from the woman who gave you life. She opens it gently. Inside, her biological mother's original will, signed and dated years ago. A note reads, "To my dearest Ava, may you always know your worth, and may no one ever make you pay for belonging." Tears well in Ava's eyes. For the first time, she feels completely seen, not as the adopted one, but as a woman finally standing in her own truth. Ava folds the letter close to her heart and whispers, "Maybe love wasn't lost. Maybe it was just waiting to be found again." It's been 1 year since that dinner. 1 year since I sent $3 and took my life back. Ava now runs a foundation for adopted children, helping them find homes, confidence, and belonging. Walls of her office display photos of smiling families. She's no longer the girl begging for love. She's the woman creating it for others. Cut to a TV studio. Ava sits across from a calm, smiling interviewer. On the screen behind them, the woman who turned $3 into a movement. The interviewer asks gently, "Ava, millions have watched your story. But tell us, would you ever forgive your sister?" Ava pauses, eyes glistening but strong. "I already did. The moment I sent that $3, I stopped owing her anything." The audience in the studio grows quiet. She continues softly. "Forgiveness isn't about letting them back in your life. It's about freeing yourself from the pain they left behind." Cut to quick flashbacks. The restaurant humiliation, the $3 transaction, the courtroom, the viral hashtag, $3sister. Each moment fades into white light, symbolizing peace, not pain. Voiceover. "She told me to find another table, so I built my own and made room for others like me." After the interview, Ava walks out of the studio and sees a group of kids from her foundation waiting for her outside, holding handmade signs. "Thank you, Ava. We belong because of you." Tears fill her eyes. She kneels, hugs them, smiling through emotion. A reporter snaps a photo. It goes viral again. but this time for something pure. Not revenge, not exposure, just hope. Voiceover over cinematic visuals of her foundation and sunset over the city. They measured my worth in money, but I found mine in love. I sent $3, not to hurt them, but to remind myself that I was priceless. Slow fade out as Ava lights a candle in her office, next to a framed photo of her biological mother's letter. Sometimes peace costs exactly $3,